My room in his house was barely big enough to turn around in. Just a narrow bed, a creaky wardrobe, and a single window with a broken latch. Meanwhile, his kids, Julian and Rose, had rooms bigger than my old living room, decorated with new furniture every 6 months. One Saturday morning, I came down to the dining room and saw them digging into a breakfast feast. Pancakes, bacon, fresh juice, chocolate croissants still warm from the bakery. Can I have some too?
There's cereal in the kitchen.
It wasn't just breakfast. Birthdays were a showcase of favoritism. Julian's 16th, a brand new Yamaha motorbike. Rose's 18th, a trip to Paris with her friends. Mine, a secondhand sweater so you can keep warm in the mornings. On the day of my exams, I had planned to spend the evening revising, but Aunt Stella appeared in my doorway holding a mop.
The floors need scrubbing and the bathroom too, and don't forget to wash the veranda.
But my exam?
Education is important, but so is keeping a clean house. Get to it.
By the time I finished, my arms ached, and I was too exhausted to read more than a page of my notes. Once, an old friend of my father's visited unexpectedly. He brought a wrapped package for me. My name is Miriam, and my life started with loss. My mother died giving birth to me, so I never knew the sound of her laugh or the warmth of her hugs. It was just me and my father, Daniel, for 15 years. He was my whole world before my father's death. My world was filled with simple joys. Every night, without fail, he would sit at the edge of my bed, the scent of soap and engine grease still clinging to him after a long day at work.
All right, princess, one more story, then you sleep.
2 more.
1.5.
He'd read until his voice grew husky, then tuck the blanket under my chin and kiss my forehead. Weekends were our adventure days, sometimes to the park, sometimes to the kitchen. He wasn't the best cook, but he made the fluffiest pancakes I'd ever tasted, even if half of them were slightly burnt. And when I was 8, he taught me to ride a bike. I fell so many times my knees looked like a battlefield, but he never once let go of the handlebars without making sure I could balance. Before he died, there was Uncle Patrick, my father's younger brother. He was kind back then, the type who brought me candy when he visited, who ruffled my hair and called me princess. He and my father were close, often talking late into the night over bottles of Star beer, and I thought he'd always be part of our safe little world. Then, one rainy evening, the world ended again. My father's car skidded off the highway and hit a truck. He died instantly. At the funeral, Uncle Patrick hugged me tight and whispered,
Don't worry, princess. I'll take care of you.
I believed him. I wish I hadn't. The day after the will was read, with my inheritance handed over to Uncle Patrick until I came of age, everything changed. The warmth in his eyes cooled. The candy stopped. The princess nickname disappeared. And Aunt Stella, Uncle Patrick's wife. She never liked me, but now she didn't bother to hide it. She would forget to put aside food for me at dinner, so I'd end up eating cold leftovers in the kitchen after everyone else had gone. She once gave me Rose's old school uniform, but cut the hem so short that I got in trouble with the headmistress for wearing improper clothing. When I asked why she'd done it, she smiled and said,
Oh, I must have made a mistake. You're growing so fast, Miriam.
Another time, she told me to mop the living room floor just as Rose's friends arrived, then loudly scolded me for being lazy in front of them, even though my hands were still dripping from the bucket. I still remember the day my uncle's face lit up as he signed the final papers. He had just taken over my father's business, the one my father had bled for, worked day and night for, the one he'd left for me in his will. But I was only 15 then, still in school, still learning how the world worked. The law said I needed a guardian, and that guardian was Uncle Patrick. He promised to protect my inheritance. Instead, he became its new owner.
Don't worry, Miriam. I'll manage everything for you until you're older. You just focus on school, okay?
But his smile never reached his eyes. It didn't take long for the changes to start. My room in his house was barely big enough to turn around in. Just a narrow bed, a creaky wardrobe, and a single window with a broken latch. Meanwhile, his kids, Julian and Rose, had rooms bigger than my old living room, decorated with new furniture every 6 months. One Saturday morning, I came down to the dining room and saw them digging into a breakfast feast. Pancakes, bacon, fresh juice, chocolate croissants still warm from the bakery. Can I have some too?
There's cereal in the kitchen.
It wasn't just breakfast. Birthdays were a showcase of favoritism. Julian's 16th, a brand new Yamaha motorbike. Rose's 18th, a trip to Paris with her friends. Mine, a secondhand sweater so you can keep warm in the mornings. On the day of my exams, I had planned to spend the evening revising, but Aunt Stella appeared in my doorway holding a mop.
The floors need scrubbing and the bathroom too, and don't forget to wash the veranda.
But my exam?
Education is important, but so is keeping a clean house. Get to it.
By the time I finished, my arms ached, and I was too exhausted to read more than a page of my notes. Once, an old friend of my father's visited unexpectedly. He brought a wrapped package for me. I never saw it again. Weeks later, I found the same scarf around Rose's neck. When I asked, she shrugged.
Mom said you wouldn't like it.
One time I overheard him talking to Aunt Stella in the living room.
She's lucky we even took her in. She's not my responsibility. She's my brother's mistake.
I froze behind the door, clutching my book so tightly my knuckles turned white. One December, they were packing suitcases in the hallway. I asked where they were going.
Dad booked us into that beach resort. Pool, buffet, spa, the works.
I brightened. Can I come? Uncle's voice was flat.
Someone needs to watch the house. We'll bring you something nice.
They left that afternoon. I spent the next 4 days alone, living on instant noodles and stale bread. The only sounds in the house, the ticking of the wall clock and the hum of the fridge. When they returned, Rose tossed me a keychain shaped like a seashell. Here, souvenir. School wasn't much better. He paid for private tutors for Julian and Rose, but told me there was no point since my grades were already good enough. He never came to my parent-teacher meetings, never asked how I was doing. The one time I got top in my class, he shrugged and said, "Well, that's what you're supposed to do, isn't it?" But his children. Oh, they could fail a class and still get rewarded with shopping trips. Years went by, and I learned to keep my head down. I got a scholarship for university, something he didn't even congratulate me for, and worked part-time jobs to cover what my scholarship didn't. All the while, I watched his life grow bigger. New cars every year, vacations in Dubai, a beach house in Miami. Then came the day that would start his unraveling. It was Julian's birthday, and Uncle decided to take the family to the beach. I wasn't invited, of course.
You have exams, Miriam.
But later that day, the news broke. A swimmer had been attacked by a shark. When I saw the name, my heart stopped. Julian. They said it happened so fast. One moment he was laughing with his friends, splashing in the water. The next, the ocean was red. The body was never recovered. The house went silent for weeks after that. Aunt Stella barely ate, and Rose locked herself in her room. Uncle Patrick, for the first time, looked smaller. He still didn't speak to me, but I'd catch him staring into space, his eyes hollow. I thought that would be the end of his arrogance. I was wrong. 2 years later, a golden opportunity came his way. At least, that's how he described it. A group of smooth-talking investors promised him massive returns if he joined their project. He poured in everything, sold the beach house, mortgaged the family home, even pulled Rose out of her expensive university to free up more cash. I remember the night it all came crashing down.
They're gone. All of them. Website shut down, phones off, the money's gone.
His voice trembled. I had never heard him sound like that before. Within months, debt collectors came knocking. The cars were repossessed. They had to sell the big house and move into a cramped apartment above a funeral supply shop. That's when my uncle and aunt started selling coffins. "It's honest work," he'd say, but his eyes gave him away. Word around town was that sometimes they woke up screaming at night. Nightmares of Julian, of sharks, of faceless men taking his money. As for me, I graduated top of my class, landed a job at a top law firm, and eventually opened my own practice. My office has glass walls and a view of the city. People call me ma'am now. I bought myself a car, not the flashiest, but mine, paid for in full. One afternoon, I saw him on the street. He was thinner, older, his clothes worn. He was carrying a coffin with another man, sweat running down his face. Our eyes met for a second, and he looked away. I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel pity. I just felt free. Life had done what I never could. And that's how my uncle, the man who took my inheritance and treated me like a stray, ended up broke, haunted, and selling coffins, while I rose higher than he ever imagined I could. Moral of the story? Karma doesn't need your help, but it appreciates the support. Now go ahead, hit that like button and subscribe before the sharks get you too.